let's dive in. Ready for a deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're tackling something, we all do constantly, right? Communicating.
Right.
But we're going a little deeper than, like, how to write a good email,
Right.
We're going to go beyond the surface here, and we're going to explore all the subtle ways we send and receive messages. And we've got a cool document to guide us.
Okay.
It's titled verbalcommunication.pdf.
Interesting.
Yeah, it seems like a practical kind of manual, maybe something used for training or teaching.
Yeah, I can see that.
The thing that gets me is how much we take communication for granted, right?
Totally.
We do it every day. We think we're pros, but are we really? I don't know.
Well, I think what's fascinating about it is that we miss the complexity.
Yeah.
Because we're so ingrained in it in our daily lives,
Right.
that we don't see all the moving parts.
Yeah.
And this document jumps right into verbal communication.
Okay.
Using words and sounds.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Seems simple enough, but then it stresses the importance of shared language for true understanding.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. That makes you think, huh?
It really does. Have you ever been in a conversation and it's like, even though you're technically speaking the same language,
Oh, all the time.
it feels like you're speaking different languages?
Yes. And things get really complicated, right?
Exactly. It highlights how, even with a common language, our individual interpretations and experiences can really shape how we understand each other.
Oh, 100%.
And that's just scratching the surface because they break down verbal communication into 4 types.
Okay.
Public, small group,
Right.
intrapersonal,
Ooh.
and interpersonal.
Okay, let's break them down. All right, public communication, we've all been there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone addressing a crowd, maybe a bit nervous, trying to get their message across.
Right.
Makes me think of all the dynamics at play.
Yeah.
The speaker trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
The audience reacting in real time.
It's a real power dynamic, isn't it?
Totally. It is.
One person holding the floor.
For better or for worse.
Exactly. And then you've got small group communication, which I think can get even more intense because everybody's involved, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
So you're thinking boardroom debates, family arguments around the dinner table.
Oh, especially that.
The stakes feel higher.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been in enough heated family discussions to know how charged those can get.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but now let's go to the one I find most intriguing.
Okay.
Intrapersonal communication.
Oh, interesting.
That's just a fancy way of saying talking to yourself, right?
Well, it is, but it's a lot more profound than it sounds.
Right.
I think so. It's that constant dialogue in our heads,
Right.
How we process emotions, how we make decisions, even how we daydream. We're constantly sending and receiving these messages within ourselves.
Oh.
And, understanding that internal communication, it can be key to understanding our own behaviors and our own motivations.
Now that's a deep dive within the deep dive.
It is a little meta, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Makes you wonder, how much of that self-talk is helpful versus harmful. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then there's interpersonal, which is probably the one we engage in most often.
Probably.
And that's everything from a quick chat with the barista at the coffee shop to a deep late night conversation with a close friend.
So anytime we're directly interacting with another person, that kind of falls under this.
That's the umbrella, yeah.
Umbrella. Okay, wow. It really makes you realize how many different ways we're communicating every day.
Constantly.
Even without realizing it.
We are.
But the document doesn't stop there. It takes this sharp turn into the world of nonverbals.
Ooh, okay.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
It's like the language beyond language, right?
It is.
And they give a ton of examples.
Okay.
So let's unpack a few that really stood out.
All right, I'm dim.
Okay, starting with facial expressions.
Okay.
Those can be more telling than words sometimes, right?
Sometimes.
You had that classic I'm fine face when someone is clearly anything but fine.
Oh, we've all seen that.
Oh my gosh, yes. But it makes you wonder, are we sending those signals intentionally?
Yeah.
Or is it totally subconscious? How much control do we even have over our facial expressions?
That is a great question, and I think it's probably a combination of both. Right. We have some conscious control, but a lot of it is automatic.
Yeah.
Based on, our emotions, our instincts.
Right.
Which is why it's so fascinating.
It is.
It gives us this window into our true feelings, even when we're trying to mask them.
Yes. Like, sometimes our faces betray us, even if our words don't.
Absolutely.
But facial expressions are only one piece of this puzzle, right?
Right.
The document also goes into gestures
Okay.
and how they can completely change how we interpret a message.
Oh, 100%.
Imagine, right, someone saying, I'm excited about this project.
Yeah.
But they're like slumping their shoulders, avoiding eye contact.
Right.
It's like the words say one thing, but their body language is screaming something totally different.
Totally different message.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. And a simple hand gesture, right?
Yeah.
Can make a statement more powerful. It can add emphasis. It can even signal frustration,
For sure. For sure.
Okay. Speaking of powerful signals, what about touch?
Oh, yeah. Touch is interesting.
This source actually highlights how differently touch is perceived
Right.
from men versus women.
It's a whole other layer of complexity.
It is. It's complicated.
It is. And what they suggest is that touch from women tends to be perceived as like caring or nurturing, whereas touch from men can, be misinterpreted as dominance or aggression,
Oh, wow.
which, if we think about it,
Yeah.
reveals a lot about societal expectations and how they actually color our understanding of even like the most basic interactions.
That's such a good point. It's not just about the action itself.
Right.
It's the context.
The context.
The individuals involved.
Yeah.
All these like unspoken rules we're carrying around with us.
Totally.
Makes you think like, okay, if we're aware of these biases, can we actually change how we interpret and react to touch?
I think that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Becoming aware of our own biases,
Yeah.
recognizing that not everybody experiences or expresses touch in the same way.
Right.
Like what might be totally normal for me may not be normal for you.
Right. Right.
And vice versa. And let's not forget about eye contact.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Another nonverbal cue
Oh, yeah.
that can be tricky.
Tricky to navigate for sure.
Yeah. Too little and you seem disengaged too much and you're coming on too strong.
Too strong. Yeah. It's a real delicate dance.
It's a dance. It is. We've all been in those situations, right? Where someone's holding eye contact for a little too long.
Oh, yeah. And you're like, okay, what's happening here?
What's happening here? Are they trying to like intimidate me?
Yeah. Are they like asserting dominance?
Are they just bad at social cues? We don't know.
I don't know. It's so awkward. And it highlights, right, like how much context matters.
Yeah, for sure.
And all these nonverbal communications. What might be a friendly gesture in one situation could be, totally misinterpreted in another.
Yeah. It really makes you wonder how much of our communication is actually intentional.
Right.
And how much is just us like reacting based on our past experiences and cultural norms.
Totally. It's like we're on autopilot sometimes.
Yeah.
Without even realizing it. But the document also mentions appearance
Appearance. Okay.
as a nonverbal cue.
Right.
Like our clothes, our hair, even our accessories.
Yeah.
They all send a message.
They do. Whether we intend them to or not, they do.
Whether we intend to or not, it's true.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so appearance can be a form of self-expression,
It can.
right?
Yeah.
But it can also be like influenced by,
Societal pressure.
societal pressures and expectations.
For sure.
Think about like how certain professions have dress codes.
Oh, absolutely. Or how we might dress differently, like depending on the occasion.
Are we?
Right. Going to a wedding versus going to like, I don't know, a baseball game.
Right, exactly. It's like we're constantly curating this image, even if we don't realize it. Our clothes become this way of signaling like
Who we are.
who we are and how we want to be perceived, right?
No. Yeah.
And that actually kind of ties into this fascinating table
Okay.
that the document provides.
Yeah.
It compares verbal and nonverbal communication.
Okay.
And one thing that really jumps out is like how much harder it is
To decode.
to accurately decode the nonverbal.
Yes.
Because it's so much more ambiguous and context dependent.
Exactly. With verbal communication, you have the words.
Yeah, the literal meaning.
You have the literal meaning. But with nonverbal, you're relying on all these
subtle cues
subtle cues.
that could be interpreted in different ways.
Absolutely. It's like you're trying to solve a puzzle, right?
It is.
You've got all these different pieces.
You got all these pieces. You got the facial expressions, you got the gestures, you got the tone of voice, the appearance.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in. And you're just trying to put it all together to get the full picture
Yeah.
of what someone's really communicating.
And the more pieces you have,
Yeah.
and the better you understand how they fit together,
Yeah.
the more accurate your interpretation will be.
Right.
It's a skill. It takes practice.
Right.
It takes observation, and it takes like a willingness to be open
Yeah.
to different perspectives.
That's a great point. You know, it makes me realize that like communication is more than just like exchanging information.
Oh, it is. It is.
It's about building connections.
Yes.
It's about understanding each other on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And sometimes those unspoken messages
Right.
speak volumes.
Right. They really do. They really do. That's a great insight. It's not just about what we say, it's how we say it, it's how we present ourselves. It's how we read those same cues in others. Yeah. It's dynamic, it's multifaceted, it's constantly evolving.
It really is. Okay, so this document really dives into the nuts and bolts of how we communicate.
Yeah.
But it's got me thinking bigger picture here.
Okay.
Does understanding all this actually make us better communicators?
Right.
Or just more aware of how much we don't know?
Whoa, that's a great question.
Right.
And one that we should definitely explore further.
We should, because I think we've only just scratched the surface.
I think so too.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
A lot to unpack.
There is. It's like we've been given this like amazing toolbox, right? Yeah. Full of all these communication tools.
But we're still figuring out how to use them effectively.
That's a great analogy. We've got the hammers, we've got screwdrivers.
Right.
But maybe we're missing like the blueprint.
We need the blueprint. Yeah.
To really understand how to build something solid.
I think so. And I think that blueprint involves understanding.
Okay.
Not just the individual components of communication, but the larger context in which they operate.
So zoom out a bit.
Zoom out.
Look at the whole picture. What kind of context are we talking?
Well, think about the cultural differences we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
With touch.
Right, touch, right.
What might be a perfectly acceptable gesture in one culture could be like deeply offensive in another.
Oh, that's a great point. I remember reading about how like direct eye contact is considered rude in some cultures, while in others it's like a sign of respect.
Exactly. And those cultural nuances extend to all aspects of nonverbal communication, right?
Facial expressions, personal space, tone of voice.
It's like learning a whole new language.
It is.
But instead of words, it's
body language.
Body language, yes.
Social cues.
It makes you realize like how easy it is to misinterpret things.
Oh, yeah. Especially
in today's world, right?
Especially today.
Where we're interacting with people from all over the globe.
All the time. Yeah, and it highlights the importance of cultural sensitivity, I think.
Right.
And like being aware of our own biases, you know? You can't just assume that everyone communicates the same way we do.
So how do we even like begin to navigate that? It feels like a minefield out there.
It can feel that way, but I think it starts with curiosity and a willingness to learn, you know? Don't be afraid to like ask questions, to observe, to be open to different ways of communicating.
So it's not about like mastering the rules of communication, but it's about being adaptable and understanding that those rules might change depending on who you're interacting with.
It's about being present in the moment with that person and being willing to like adjust our approach accordingly.
You know, thinking back to that intrapersonal communication we discussed earlier, this almost feels like a way of communicating more effectively with ourselves too, right?
That's a fascinating connection.
Right.
If we can become more aware of how our own cultural background and our personal experiences shape our communication style, then we can start to like identify our own blind spots and areas for growth.
So it's like holding up a mirror to our own communication habits.
Exactly.
And seeing like where we might be misinterpreting things.
Or sending unintended messages.
Totally, yeah.
That self-awareness can be so powerful in both our personal and professional lives.
It's like we're not just learning to communicate better with others, but also learning to communicate better with ourselves.
And I think that is the key to becoming a truly effective communicator. You know, it's about understanding the nuances of human interaction, both within ourselves and with the world around us.
This deep dive has taken us to some unexpected places.
It has.
We started with like, you know, the basics of verbal communication. And now we're exploring like cultural differences, nonverbal cues, even our own internal dialogues.
It's amazing how interconnected it all is.
It really is. And speaking of connections, the document didn't even touch on like the explosion of digital communication we see today.
Oh, that's right.
Like how do emojis, GIFs, all that like online slang.
It's all other language.
Fit into this whole conversation.
Right. It's like we've added this whole other layer of nonverbal communication.
Right.
And the rules are constantly changing.
Constantly changing. I know, like, what does a thumbs up even mean anymore? Is it genuine agreement? Is it passive-aggressive dismissal?
Right.
Or is it just like a quick acknowledgement?
It all depends. It depends on the context.
Right.
It depends on the relationship between the communicators and a whole host of other factors.
So it's even more important to be aware of those subtle cues.
I think so.
In the digital world.
Absolutely.
Where we don't have tone of voice or facial expressions to guide us.
Exactly. And it highlights how communication is constantly evolving.
Right.
Adapting to new technologies and social norms.
It's like we're all part of this giant experiment.
We are.
Figuring out how to connect with each other in this like increasingly complex world.
And the more we understand about like the underlying principles of communication, the better equipped we'll be to navigate those complexities and build meaningful connections.
I love that. So what does this all mean for our listener?
That's the important question.
Right. Why should they care about all this communication stuff?
Well, think about it this way. Every relationship you have, every interaction, every goal that you want to achieve, it all boils down to effective communication.
You're right. Like whether you're trying to ace a job interview or resolve a conflict with a loved one, or even just like make a new friend. Being a skilled communicator can make all the difference.
It's not just about like getting what you want.
Right.
It's about understanding others. It's about building trust and creating genuine connections.
And this deep dive has shown us
that
communication is so much more than just the words we say.
It's everything else that goes along with it.
It's the unspoken messages that we send through our body language, our tone of voice, even our appearance.
Our appearance, absolutely. It's about recognizing the power of those nonverbal cues and learning how to use them effectively to like enhance our communication and deepen our understanding of others.
It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring.
We have.
To unlock the mysteries of human interaction.
We have. And with practice and awareness, we can all become more fluent in this complex and ever-evolving language of communication.
Okay, so as we're, wrapping up this part of our deep dive, what's one, like, practical thing our listener can do today to start putting all this knowledge into action?
I would say start paying attention to the nonverbals. Both in yourself and in others. Notice how your body language changes depending on the situation or the person you're interacting with.
So become a scientist of our own communication style.
Be curious.
In the wild,
Observe, take notes.
Be a nonverbal naturalist.
Exactly. And once you start paying attention to those subtle cues, you'll be amazed at how much they reveal about like what's really going on beneath the surface.
It's like a whole new world is opening up.
It is.
Okay, cool. I'm inspired.
Good.
To go out there and decode all the nonverbal messages around me.
Do it. And remember, it's not about becoming a mind reader. Or like judging people based on their body language. It's about like understanding the nuances of communication and using that knowledge to connect with others more authentically.
Beautifully said. Well, I think we've successfully unpacked this communication puzzle.
I think we have for now.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just this. The next time you're in a conversation, whether it's like a casual chat or an important meeting, take a moment to really observe. Listen not just to the words, but to the unspoken language.
To the unspoken. Okay, I'm going to do that.
I think you'll be surprised at what you discover.
I'm sure I will. Thanks for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive.
It was my pleasure. Until next time, happy communicating.
We've uncovered so much.
We have.
It's almost like we've got like a superpower now.
Yeah, in a way, I think you're right. The ability to understand and interpret these nonverbal cues, it really can give you an advantage in any interaction.
Okay, so if I'm listening right now, what's my takeaway?
Good question.
Where do I start? How do I put all this into practice?
Well, I would challenge you to become a more mindful communicator.
Okay.
Start paying attention to those subtle cues in yourself and in others.
Okay.
Notice how your own body language like shifts depending on the situation or who you're talking to.
So turn up the awareness.
Turn up the awareness. Yeah.
Almost like I'm a scientist.
Yes.
Observing my own communication style.
be curious.
In the wild, right.
In the wild, absolutely.
The nonverbal naturalist.
Yeah, exactly. And once you start paying attention to those subtle cues, you might be surprised.
At what?
At how much they reveal about what's really going on.
Ooh, beneath the surface.
Beneath the surface, yeah.
Okay, so that's me, right?
Yeah.
Should I be analyzing everybody I talk to now?
I wouldn't say analyzing, but observing, yeah.
Observing, okay.
Pay attention to the nonverbals of the people that you interact with. See if you can notice, do their words match their body language?
Right.
Are they making eye contact? Mm-hmm. What does their posture tell you?
Okay, so it's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
Yes, a little bit. All those nonverbal cues give us a little more information.
Yeah, to understand the bigger picture.
Yeah, to kind of get a better sense of what someone's really communicating.
But doesn't that feel a little...
What?
Manipulative.
Oh, interesting.
You know? Like, I'm using this knowledge to, read people.
Yeah, and that's where the ethical dimension comes in, right?
Right.
This knowledge isn't about manipulating people or assuming that you know exactly what they're thinking.
Right.
It's about developing a deeper understanding of human behavior.
Yeah.
And using that understanding to communicate more effectively and empathetically.
So it's not about, tricking people.
No.
Or gaining some, unfair advantage?
No, not at all. It's about being a better listener.
Okay.
A more perceptive communicator.
So it's still about being genuine.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just another tool to add to
your toolbox.
Yeah, to my toolbox. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Man, this whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
I'm glad.
I feel a lot more aware.
Good. That's the goal.
Of all the ways that, we're communicating.
Yeah.
And how much those unspoken messages really matter.
They really do.
They do.
And this is just the beginning, Yeah. The more you practice, the more attuned you'll become to these nuances of communication.
It's like we said earlier, we've got that secret decoder ring now.
We do.
To unlock the mysteries of human interaction.
Exactly. And the more we use it,
the
more fluent we become in this complex language of communication.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what's one key takeaway you hope our listener will walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that communication is so much more than just words, right?
Right.
It's this intricate dance of verbal and nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
Influenced by our culture, our experiences, even our own internal dialogues.
Right.
And by becoming more aware of all those elements, we can become more effective, more empathetic, and more authentic communicators.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, it's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
And remember, keep those communication skills sharp.
You never know when you'll need them.
You never know when you'll need them.
You never know.
That's right. Until next time.